Hi, I'm Hewie Poplock. I'm sitting in Bradenton, Florida, and I'm talking to you, and I'm going to talk to you about your browser. And that's the most important app that you use. And you don't often think of the browser as an app, but it is. Back in October, just a few months ago, the internet celebrated its 50th anniversary. On the evening of October 29th, 1969, a student at the University of California, Los Angeles, sent the first message over ARPANET, the forerunner of the internet, with just two letters, LO. And why? Because the system crashed. The student, Charlie Klein, had tried to type log in. It did work on the second try. So even back then, people had issues. Sir Tim Berners-Lee made a proposal for an information management system on 12 March of 1989, and he implemented the first successful communication between a Hypertext Transfer Protocol, or HTTP, client and server via the internet in mid-November the same year, 1989. Back in those days, was that many of us either used or went to or ran bulletin board services, electronic bulletin board services. I ran one from 1986 to 1996 called the Fabulous BBS, FAB meaning for food and beverage, and I geared it towards the food and beverage industry, but there were hundreds and hundreds of bulletin boards just in the Orlando area, and that's where I lived at that time. Well, I started it in Tampa, and then I moved to Orlando. But I ran it for about 10 years, and it was a software called PC Board, and that's what it looked like to me. And several of my friends used the same software, as well as did our computer user group in Orlando, the Central Florida Computer Society. Their bulletin board used this same software, so when I played this, they were all excited. It brought back a lot of memories. But there were a lot of other BBSs and BBS software around. Some of these, if you were around back then, some of these may bring back some memories. Wildcat was a very famous one, and the author of the Wildcat software, or the head of the company, used to be very active at Comdex, and I remember meeting him either at an APCUG function or at one of the functions I went to from the APCUG conference that was being held then. This is what the first Netscape Navigator looked like. I went to my first meeting talking about the internet at the local university in Orlando, the Central Florida University of Central Florida, and we were in a big auditorium, and they talked about Netscape Navigator, and they were demonstrating. It says, yes, it's only on the Apple architecture now, but it will soon be on Windows. So that really goes back. That was about 1994, 1993, in that area. This was my first bulletin board. My first internet website. This is a photo of the screen in 2000. It's still up and running, and I post all of my Windows Special Interest Group meetings and recordings of those meetings on that website. It's Hewie.net. I've had that. I've had the same email address and domain since 1995. At the same time, I put together at the last Comdex I went to, I think it was the last one, might have been not quite the last one, but one in 1998, and I had taken some pictures and so on, and this is what it looked like back then. Certainly different than what websites look like today. And this is what it looked like. Another page. This is what the actual code of a website looks like. This is the one from my website, and I was using a program called NetObjects Fusion to create my websites at the time. I've used several programs over the years. This is what the website looks like today. certainly a lot different than that early one. So what is a web browser? A web browser, or simply browser, is an application used to access and view websites. Do you need help? Nope, just browsing. And that, of course, is the...
He's in Florida?
Yes, he's in Florida.
Oh, what city does he live in?
Bradenton.
Where?
Bradenton.
Mine got two sisters who live in Florida.
That's cute.
Early web browsers, such as Mosaic and Netscape Navigator, were simple applications that rendered HTML, processed processed form input, and supported bookmarks. As websites have evolved, so have the web browser requirements, and many of today's use not only HTML, but XHTML and HTML5, dynamic JavaScript encryption used by secure websites, and much more. So they've really evolved quite a bit. Browser compatibility issues can be a problem. Since browsers use different rendering engines, websites may not appear the same across multiple browsers. So what you see using one browser may be different than what I see using the one that I use. It's become less of an issue over the years because people are writing, putting together websites that solve a lot of those problems as well. The primary function of a web browser is to render the HTML, the code used to design or mark up web pages. These are some of the major browsers, and these are the icons some of you may recognize. Some of you may have more than one on your computer, and you may use more than one. And here's some more icons of so many of the browsers that are out there. There's lots of them. The E from the Microsoft Edge is evolving this week. On the 15th, just 2 days away, the new Microsoft Edge is going to start being rolled out to the to people who have Windows, and it'll be in the normal update cycle, and you're going to start seeing a different web browser. And it's going to be a new Chromium-based Edge. It's going to be based on Chrome from Google, of all places. And it'll arrive on Windows 10 Home and Pro versions starting on the 15th. They're going to roll it out gradually, so you may not get it on the 15th, but don't be surprised when it happens. And when it does, the old version of Edge will be removed. It will be available for Windows. The new one will be available for Windows 10, Windows 7, Windows 8, and the Mac OS. Only business users, not consumers, will have the option to prevent the update and keep the current Edge browser. I don't know why.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying to myself.
So, without a browser, here's what a web page would look like. Well, not just this. Let's do this. There we go. Certainly not something that you are going to be able to understand and know what's being said on that page. This is just one page of a website, and there's a lot of code there. And when it finishes, that's a lot of code. And then, using a browser, here's what that same web page, in other words, what all that code was this website. Certainly, having a browser makes it a lot easier to read it and know what's on there and be able to use that web page.
Too cool.
Most browsers look and feel similar. Even the settings are similar. I'm going to be using the Chrome browser for most of this presentation, but other browsers are going to be very similar, and I'm going to show you a little bit about that a little bit later. So here's a typical page. Now, it just happens to be Google, and the Google search engine is on the page, but don't think the Google or the Chrome browser, because it is Google's, you have to have that as your home page. You can have almost any home page you want when you open it up to be that, and I'm going to talk about that and how to set that up. This is what I prefer and what I use. So let's look at the header and kind of see what a browser is made up of, or what you can do with a browser. First, there are tabs. And tabs are individual windows of different websites. You can have multiple tabs. You see the plus sign. There's the tab. There's where you can add a tab. I was listening to a podcast just 2 days ago, and they were talking about some people that they know that have hundreds of tabs open at any given time. And I was thinking to myself, why in the world would you want that? And how do you find the one you're looking for? But you can have multiple tabs, and a lot of times I'll have 8 or 10 open because I'm working on a project and I'm going back and forth between information from one to another. So you don't have to close your browser out every time you want to go to a different site. Just open a different tab and then go back and forth between them. Okay, let's look at some of the other things that you can do, or some of the other things on the header. The forward and back arrows are normally black instead of gray. They're gray because I only have one. I haven't been to any other sites, but if you work your way through to several sites, you can go backwards and then forwards using those arrows. This is the reload or refresh button. If you click that, it will load the page again. Sometimes something hangs. You're loading a page and one of the advertisements or one of the photos doesn't load and it gets stuck. Well, if you hit that refresh, it will, there's a good possibility then it will go ahead and try it and it will reload it and everything will be fine. Another reason you might want to use the reload is if you make a change, if you fill out a form and you don't like the form and you want it to go back to the empty form, just hit that reload button and it'll reload it without sending out the information. This is where the URL goes, with the address that, of a website that you want to go to, but you can also type something you're searching for in there. So you don't need to go to the box in the center of the page. You can just type in Google, you can just type the search, what you're searching for up there, and it will then go out and do your search. The bookmark bar is that whole bar down here along the edge of places where you've made a bookmark and you want them to show. And I'm going to show you a little bit where if you've got more than what are showing there, there's another place where you can go. This is the distill page, those 3 lines there, and I'm going to explain what that is in just a few minutes. And this is, if you want to create a bookmark, you just click that star. It will then say, okay, you want to add a bookmark of where you're at, and then it'll say, do you want it on the bookmark bar? Or do you want it other bookmarks, or you can actually create several different groups of bookmarks and put it in whatever one you want and go back to it later. And there's where the other bookmarks are, and if you I will show you that in just a moment. If you have any extensions or add-ons, they're the icons, and that's all of these icons right up here. And I'm going to explain which ones I have, and I'm going to talk about some icons, some extensions that I use that I think that you will like. And this is the user. Now you can sign in. I have several usernames because I have several email addresses. So I can sign in on different tabs to different accounts, and it'll be designated. This happens to be an H for my name, but sometimes there's a C because I'm logged on as a CFCS member, and that's the name of that particular username, and so on. So I might be signed in as 2 or 3 of my accounts on different tabs, and I can tell which one I'm signed in on by looking at that. And then there's a menu where you can do a whole bunch of things, and I'm going to explain that and talk about some of the things on that menu. So again, here's all of the items on the header. So remember I said if you've got more than what can show on your bookmarks bar, if you click that double arrow that's circled there, what you'll get is a drop down of all the rest of what you've got listed on your bookmarks bar. Now the nice thing about it is you can drag those around and put them in any order you want. So if you want, let's say the one down about in the middle, it's got a number 28 and then the CAL for calendar. If you want to have that, say, way up here at the top, you can just drag that and put it at the top of the list and get it so it's showing up here. And that'll move everything else over. So probably Hootsuite would fall down and would be at the top of the list. And then the same with other bookmarks. You can have a whole bunch of other bookmarks there. And as I said, you can manage your bookmarks by having several groupings, and you may see those as well when you open up the Bookmarks Manager. Now here's your menu. When I said the 3 dots there are a menu, and this is what it looks like. And I'm going to talk about some of these items. But first, cream, bread, cake, meatloaf, black-eyed peas. Wait, this isn't the recursion list, it's my music playlist. So let's look at some typical settings. Many browsers can sync between devices, which is really nice. And I'll talk about that just in just a second. And then note that the arrow indicator signifies more choices. So if you see this, that means there's some more choices. So let's look at one of these settings. One is sync. What this is doing is it's syncing to one of my accounts that I use as my basic account on my Chromebook. So when I'm on my desktop and I have this syncing, everything that I make changes in this, when I open up my Chromebook, those changes are also in that version of Chrome that I'm using on my desk, on my Chromebook. You can turn it off where it says turn off. So if it's off, it's going to say turn on. And then if it says turn on, then you may have to answer a few questions. I don't recall if it requires some a password or not. There's some other things you can do, but notice there's a little arrow here. So if I clicked on that arrow, it would give me a drop down, and there would be some choices there. Now I'm going to go down and talk about passwords. Your browser can be set to autofill information such as passwords, credit card information, or addresses. It used to be that information was stored in a text file that your browser went out and used. It's now part of the browser, and it is, in some ways, it is somewhat protected, so someone looking at your computer can't get to that information. And I'll show you what happens if you try to get to it through this. So if you got your auto passwords, your autofill and passwords, and when you click on that, you've got some choices. You can offer to save passwords. You ever get that pop-up that says, when you go to a new site and you put in a password, do you want to save this? Well, if you say yes, it saves it in this protected file on your computer. You can have it so it doesn't ask you. Then you would turn it off. You want to auto sign in. So if you've told it to save those passwords, You want it to go ahead and sign in for you. And that, again, is something you can turn on or turn off. Some people don't like it. And then if you have some saved passwords, and I've got a list here, I'm going to show you in the next slide a little bit more about that. So here's what it looks like. You've got some websites that these are some of mine, some websites that I've been to, the email address or the username that I'm using to sign in on. I've got them grayed out so you can't see what I use. And then your password. And then you'll notice over here is a little I. And if you clicked on that I, it has the potential of showing you what those dots are. However, in order to do that, Chrome is going to come up, Google Chrome is going to come up and say, okay, what's your sign in? What's your Windows password to allow this? So you've got to sign. This is a Windows security thing. It's not a Chrome thing. It's a Windows. And Windows is saying sign in with your Windows account, the same one you sign into your computer with. And so I'd have to put in the PIN that I have. And once I do that, then you can't see what it is because I'm not going to let you know what my password is. But you'll see now there's an X marked on the I, and you would actually see the password. There's a lot of good things about this, and of course, there's just some security issues too that you want. Some people don't like to do this. What I like about it, when I go to help somebody with their computer, sometimes they can't remember their passwords, and if I'm lucky enough and they saved them like this, I can go in, and as long as I have the password to get into their computer, and obviously I can because they're on it, I can get in there and I can look to see what some of those passwords are. And it's amazing how many people use the same passwords for everything or close to it, which you shouldn't do, but it saves me when I'm trying to help them. So then once I got their passwords, then I admonish them about it.
Yes, as well you should.
Okay, some other choices that you have in setup. You can change your themes. You can show the home button. You can show the bookmarks bar. Remember that bookmarks bar? If you don't like having that, you can turn that off and it doesn't show. You can change your font size. Medium is recommended, but if you have trouble reading the screen, you might want to make it a little bit bigger. Remember, when you make it bigger, then it's not going to, using the change of a font, it's not going to look like the people who created the website want you to see it. So it may be off a little bit, and some things may be overlapping others. So that sometimes isn't a good idea. Same thing with customizing fonts. You want to let the website owner handle that, not you, but you can make some changes if you need to. And then the page zoom. I usually keep mine at 100%, but you can change the zoom. That makes things bigger, but you don't get as much on the screen when you do that. But you don't need to come into your settings to do that. There's a trick, and it's the same trick or same keyboard that shortcuts that you use in a lot of other programs. You hold the Control key down and you hit the plus sign to make things bigger, and the Control key and the minus sign to make them smaller. So you can make them bigger. If it's too big, you can make it smaller. Or you can say, oh, if you're on a certain website and you can't read something, or you want that picture to look a little bit bigger, or you want to do a screen capture of just something and you want it a lot larger, that's something I do a lot. I'll Control plus a few times, make it bigger, capture that screen or that part of the screen, and then hit the Control minus and take it back to where I'm watching it. So remember those two shortcuts because they're important. But again, you can go back into the menu and zoom in and out as well. You can determine which search engine to use in your search bar. You might not like Chrome. You might want to use Bing, or you might want to use DuckDuckGo, or you might want to use one of the other ones that are out there. Well, in the settings, you can go to the search engine used in the address bar, and when you click on the down button, it will give you a list of the ones it knows, and then it'll also say other. And so if it's the one you want isn't listed there, you can go and find it and put it in there. And you can manage search engines as well. But that would be your search engine that you want in the address bar. You can have it whatever you want. So even if you're using Google Chrome browser, you don't need to use the Google You don't need to use the Google search engine or the search bar.
Yeah.
And I'm sure, you know, there are times that I wish I could do this to a newspaper or a magazine. Okay, some other settings. When you start your browser, remember I mentioned earlier, I have it set for just the Chrome, the Google browser window. Well, you can have it anything you want. You can tell it, okay, I want to open a new tab page. I want to continue where I left off. So if I closed one session and I had 5 or 6 things opened, it would remember what I had opened the next time I start the browser or start up my computer. Or you can open a specific page or a set of pages, and when you click that, what you get then is some choices. Do you want to add a new page, or do you want to use the current pages? So if you have 3 or 4 tabs open, you can say just use current pages, and those tabs will become your opening. So when next time you open the browser, those same tabs will open up. So if you want to start with a search engine in one, your Facebook in another, and your email in another, and say, okay, I want these, every time I open up my browser, I want those 3 tabs to be open, that's how you would do it. It would save a lot of steps if you're doing that every time you're opening your browser. And so this is what one of the ones I set up and I use occasionally. And so I would have the Google page, the search page, my Facebook, one email account, and then a different email account in a different tab, informed delivery. And if you're not using informed delivery, it's great. And that's from the United States Postal Service. It'll give you a picture of everything you're going to get in the mail that day. Not all of the insides of it, just shows you the envelope. And then if I wanted also the APCUG website to open up. So I've got all of these. So because I've got this set up this way, every time I open up the browser, all of those tabs would be open every time I opened up the browser. This is what all the settings look like on one page. I've been showing you little snippets. It's not in little groups. It's one long page, so you do have to scroll down it, and there is an advanced button, and when you click on that advanced button, it goes further. So obviously you can't read that. If you can, you got better eyes than I got. Okay, what about extensions and add-ons? Here's where you find it, under More Tools, and then Extensions. Some of the browsers call them add-ons, and Google calls them extensions. Remember, these were the icons that I have up here, and I'm going to talk about all of those. But this is how you get to add them and look at them. So let's take a look. So when I click on extensions, these are some of the ones that I have installed. This button right here shows that one is on. I can turn it off anytime and not have to uninstall it. And if I want to turn it back on, I just go to that button and turn it back on. So I don't have to remove it. If I don't remember what it is, I can click on details and it'll tell me a little bit about what that is. So these are some of the ones that I have, and I'm going to talk about each one separately. So I don't need to do it right now, but I just wanted to show you with some of the extensions that I have. And so if you go to extensions, it'll show the extensions when you click on that. So let's install one. And I'm going to install AdBlocker Plus. So I go to the Chrome Web Store because I'm using the Google Chrome browser. And so I go to the Chrome Web Store and I look for, and I do the search for AdBlocker. Well, there's a ton of ad blockers. So when I click, I'm looking for extensions, not themes when I'm doing this. And it'll show me some, and I wanted to make it big enough, and sometimes there might be several pages of it. And so I'm going to go to the next page, and I found the one I'm looking for is AdBlock Plus. It's a free ad blocker. It's offered by adblockplus.org, and there's 168,321 users, and they rated it 4.5 stars. So it's highly rated. And what I would do is click on Add to Chrome. And when I do, it brings up another screen, but it's going to be this screen, and it's really over 10 million plus users. And that 168,000 I said was users, that's just the number of people who rated it. There's over 10 million users. So I click Add to Chrome again, and it said Add ad blocker. So it asked me again, is that what I want to do? I click Add extension, and it says installation successful. Tells me a little bit about it, and it's ready to go. So what does Ad Blocker Plus do? Well, here's an example. I went to this website, PC Magazine. They have all kinds of ads. There's one up here, there's one over here, and when I then turn on Ad Blocker Plus, that same page looks like this. These are menu items from the page, not ads. That ad at the top is gone, that ad on the side is gone. Not only that, it put a little icon for the Ad Blocker Plus, but there's a number right there, and the number is 47. What that means, when I click on that icon, it says number of items blocked on this page, 47 ads, and a total of 114. And sometimes you go to a website and they say, hey, we don't allow ad blockers. We want you to see our ads, or we're not going to let you see our page. Well, then you can turn it off for that website, and it'll ask you, do you want to just always turn off for this website or not? Or if you just want to, you turn it off, look at what the article you want, turn it back on, so you don't forget the next time. Now, remember I mentioned about the distilled page contents. That was this three-line menu. Well, you can also get to it from your menu item, and it's called Toggle Distilled Page Contents. So I'm on the same page, and I really, not only don't I want the ads, I don't want all the clutter, and I don't want all the menus. I just want the gist of the article. Well, when I click on that, this is what it looks like. And you can print it out like this as well. So that just makes it really clean. So if you like collecting articles and saving articles or printing them out for your friends, you can do it this way, and you're not wasting a lot of ink, and you're not wasting a lot of your time and paper. Now let's look at some of the other extensions that I have. The first one is Evernote. If you've seen my Evernote presentation, and I do have one on Evernote, I use it all the time. So this one is important to me. So when I go to a page, I click on Save the Clip, and it also has something similar to what I showed you as a distilled page, and they call it a simplified article, and this is what it would look like. And I then save the clip, and that saves it to my Evernote, and I now have 15,300 plus notes in my Evernote over the years. The next icon that I have is Adobe Acrobat, and I can, when I click on that, I can convert a web page. I have the commercial version of Acrobat, not the reader, and so this allows me to do this. The next one on here is my e-wallet, which is my password manager program. Oh, by the way, I have 1,300 cards of passwords and keys and all kinds of information that I save in that as well. So I can get to it, though, by clicking on that, and that will usually bring up the information for that particular website if I need it. This next one is one that I use quite a bit. It might not be something that you do, but sometimes I look up a whole bunch of different URLs or addresses, and then I want to open up the windows for those, and I got a list. Well, then I got to copy and paste each one into a tab. Well, what I can do here is I create a list. It says, okay, give me the list. I paste the list in, and when I click OK, it then opens up a tab for each one of those. A neat little
What's that one
add-on that I
called?
use. I'm sorry?
What's that one called?
Um,
That one.
yeah, extract URLs from open URLs. Let's see. I'll have to let you know. I don't remember exactly what it's called.
Thank you, because that looks way cool.
The next one is one called Password Checkup Extension. It looks at your passwords and then goes out and checks to see if there might be a breach on that particular one, and is showing that there is one, and I can just tell it to ignore it, or it might say learn more, or I need to go out and change the password for it. Another one I use is called the Web of Trust, WOT. And what it does, it allows you as the end user to rate that page, whether it's secure or 1, 2, 3, or 4 or 5 stars, whether it's a safe website. So sometimes if it says it's marginal or it's not safe, it was because a lot of people have said it wasn't. So sometimes it may be okay, but people just were uncomfortable with it. But for the most part, if I get this, I stay away from that website.
That's cool.
And one of our members in one of the groups that I belong to sent a link out. The article was fine, but there were links to programs in that article that were very dangerous. And so this site is warned from WOT not to go there, because there can be some serious problems with that website. Okay, I mentioned the username. Well, this happens to be one of my accounts. If I click on the little buttons here, it opens up and shows me a whole bunch of Google programs that are available with that account. And there's a more down at the bottom, and then there is a ton of things that Google offers and that you can get to from your account. But sometimes I have more than one account, so sometimes I need to sign in with a different account to get to something. And so I can have several accounts, or I can add more accounts to it. And that doesn't mean create a new account. That means open up one that I have. It just may not be in the list. But then I can switch that page to whatever account I need. So when I go to my calendar, I'm using one account. When I go to some things I store out on my Chromebook, it's a different account. Grammarly is another one of the add-ons that I use, and that's the G right here. And if you don't use Grammarly, shame on you.
Yes, absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
and if you don't use it, you're probably admonished by Judy quite often. But what does it do? Well, here's an example. You can check for writing suggestions. You can show definitions and synonyms. There's a lot that you can do, and there's also a premium version and so on. But I wrote something for Facebook, and it found 3 items that I did wrong, and it underlined them. One of them, I really, looking at it real quickly, it didn't look, I couldn't figure out what the problem was. But then it tells you what the problem is, and tells, if you click here, it fixes it. If you click the green, it fixes it. So when I click it, bingo, it fixed it. Then it goes to the next one. Oh, I left an N out of technology, and I didn't even notice that. Even looking at it, even with it underlined, I didn't see that. So what I do is click there, and it fixes that. And then this one, oh, there's no space after the period. So I click that, and bingo, it fixed it, and then I was able to upload it. Another browser that's available is called Firefox. Some of you might use Firefox. There are a lot of other browsers out there. I'm using Firefox just to show you, excuse me, that some are similar, some are a little bit different. But here is their menu, and you can see add-ons, options, a new window, you've got a tab up here, and you can add more tabs. You can customize some things. And let's look at some other, in the menu, your startup, you can restore the previous session, you can mark that. You can change, so Firefox is your default browser, or you can have it check it each time and say, do you want it to be your default browser? And then also, you can set up your home page. It's very similar to the other, but instead of a list, you do it with a space between each one, and you can have current pages, or you can use a bookmark. So quite similar, but not quite the same. The search bar, you can change which search bar you want to have. If you want to use the address bar for your search, or you can add a search bar in the toolbar if you want. So you can turn those, you can click that and it'll turn that on. So it'll look like this. You can have a default search engine. You can have Google. Again, that's a drop down, so you can have something else. So Firefox, as you can see, quite similar to Chrome. The new Edge is going to look a lot like the Chrome one because it's based on it's going to look almost the same. And then there's some other of the browsers. They'll have different choices and maybe some different wording. They may be in different orders, but essentially it's going to be the same information. And the same with the syncing. You can sync your Firefox between devices. And you can have the same Firefox on your phone as you have on your desktop, as you have on your tablet, with the same information. And you can have extensions. So I've got the Evernote. One criteria I have if I'm going to try a different browser is it better have Evernote, because if I find something and I can't save it to my Evernote, I will be frustrated. So a lot of the same add-ons are available for several of the browsers. Going back to the Chrome to finish up, there's a couple other items I want to cover. The new incognito window. And DuckDuckGo is one that is automatically kind of an incognito, so you don't have to worry about going to a special setting or a special tab or window. But and what it does is if you've gone incognito, if I clicked on that, now you can browse privately, and other people who use this device won't see your activity. However, downloads and bookmarks will be saved. Chrome won't save the following information when you're incognito: your browsing history, your cookies and site data, information entered in forms. It won't save websites you visit, your employer or school, or your internet service provider. So if you go to a website or you're going to go to a website and you want to make sure that other people don't know you're doing that, or you don't want them to know some things about you, then go ahead and go incognito. Or use something like DuckDuckGo, and there are some other pretty good secure browsers as well. Cookies. A lot of times you'll go to a website and they'll say your cookies aren't on, or we use cookies. What are cookies? They're very small text files placed on your computer by a web server, by the website. Not all websites place cookies, and not all websites can read each other's cookies. Hang on, I'm going to mute for a moment.
It might be 85, but he's sick.
So not all websites place cookies, and web servers, web server doesn't have to repeatedly request the information. So when you go back to a website and it knows you've been there, that's because it placed a cookie on your computer, and it sees that cookie and knows how to read it. So one website shouldn't be able, in most cases, they're not able to read other cookies from other websites. But when you go to a website and it remembers your name, or it says, oh, you were here before, or you were looking at this, well, they do it using cookies for the most part. What does a cookie look like? Well, it usually will be named something like abc@example.com.text. So if you were to open one of these files, it would just look like some random numbers. It would look like this. Now, it doesn't make any sense. It's not text, but the browser, I'm sorry, the web server that you're at when you're looking at a website knows what those things mean. The strings of numbers are codes which are only meaningful to the software that generated it. Usually it is little more than a unique identifying string, although sometimes they're used for data storage. Either way, there's usually nothing meaningful to find when viewing a cookie file. So don't worry about cookies, in other words. Cookies store personal registration data, your name, your address, the contents of a shopping cart, your preferred layout for a web page, what map you might be looking at, and so on. If you've ever gone to a website and you were going to order something and you got about halfway through it and something happened and you had to go back and everything, when you refresh the page, everything's gone and you got to start over again, that's because they're not using cookies. If they were using cookies, a lot of that same information would still be there, and you just have to go in and add the additional information that you need. Cookies make it easy for web servers to personalize information to fit your specific needs and preferences when you're visiting a website. Again, if you're one of the paranoid type, you can turn cookies off, and it makes it a little more difficult when you go to some websites. Portable browsers, I did want to mention this to you. Why use a portable web browser? Your school or office doesn't allow you to install browser extensions. You like using a niche browser that's not typically available on public machines, or portable browsers will still work on all machines which do not allow you to install your own software. However, there's a warning. Stay away from the Chromium portable browser. It hasn't been updated since 2017. It runs on Chromium versions 61, and I think we're up to 79 now. So no further updates are planned. And some older browsers are notorious for being security nightmares. If you run a browser that's several years old, you're asking for trouble. There are some, the top portable browsers, the number one is actually Opera, but I figured you were more familiar with Firefox, and so Firefox is the one I put number one. Vivaldi is another one, Avant browser, and the Komodo Ice Dragon. Now, something you got to be careful of. You can download all of these portable editions and install them on a USB stick. Well, I did, and it filled up my USB stick, and it wiped it. And not only did it wipe it, but I couldn't use it. I had to throw it away.
Oh.
So be careful you don't fill up make sure you have a USB stick that's large enough to handle all of the apps if you're going to use multiple portable apps on it. This is a description of Mozilla Firefox. So it explains a little bit about Firefox. It will install the portable app, and it creates a menu. So there's different ways in which you can use these portable apps. It's not just sticking them on a stick. Sometimes you have to install them. And then it will look like this. And then you just, when you put the stick in, you'll see the file says Firefox Portable EXE. You click on that, and you're running Firefox from your USB stick. And you can do that on any computer. And so the computer is not going to keep track of what you've done. And if it's a locked down computer, you may be able to use it. Now, in some schools and in some work situations, you can't stick a USB stick. You can't put a USB stick in a computer and have it be recognized. So they know how to protect themselves from that as well. And so this is what happened when I installed it, when I started it. And welcome to Firefox. Now, I hope I haven't put you to sleep. That's our dog, Carmela.
I saw that on Facebook.
Yep. and her little, that was a new Christmas toy she had, and she liked it so much, she just put her head down on it and went sound asleep. So on that, any questions?
Yes, I have, let me see here. I have 1, 2, 3 pages of notes of stuff that I didn't know about, but that's okay. I'd never heard of Distill. What do you think about Opera, since it's been bought by the Chinese people?
It's highly rated. What I've read that they haven't made changes to make it dangerous or a problem. That's a personal thing that you're going to have to kind of decide for yourself. I believe Opera was from a Finnish company,
Uh-huh.
and it's very highly rated, and was quite secure. How it's going to be now that it's owned by a Chinese company, who knows?
And it has its own built-in VPN.
Yes,
Which
but
is cool.
also you can purchase a VPN from Avast and use theirs along with their browser. They have
Right.
a quite secure browser as well, which I've not used.
Okay, now, with all of these extensions and all that good kind of stuff, does it slow anything down?
Absolutely.
Oh, I was waiting for the not.
Yeah, and there are some times that some things may not work, and you have to turn some extensions off to make them work. Some things just don't work with certain extensions. So, it depends upon which combinations you have and which extensions you're using.
Well, I personally think everybody should use Grammarly for Word and everything, and I'm loving it with Gmail.
Yes.
Because I agonize over all this stuff I send out, under APCUG's name, so to speak. I don't want it to have any mistakes or anything, so I usually do it in Word. And with Grammarly, it's just so cool because it pops right up there and tells you what you've done wrong.
And it catches autocorrection that's not correct.
Yes. Yes, I have found that when I'm using it in Word, I will use it, and then I will use Word, and Word still will find a couple of things that Grammarly didn't. The last time I did that, I was really surprised.
Now, one of the things I didn't mention, and I meant to, you can have several browsers on your computer, and why would you want to? Well, one of the main reasons is sometimes a particular website that you go to doesn't work with a particular browser. Sometimes the developers of that website only used, let's say, Chrome, or they only used the old Internet Explorer, and some of these other browsers can't fill in the form or don't see something the right way or don't have that same font. And so sometimes having multiple browsers, when you have a problem going to a website, open up a different browser and go to that same website. I do that often when something's not working. Sometimes I have the pop-up shut off in one browser, and I can't fill out a form or I can't do something. And so I say, well, let me try it in a different browser. And when I do, that pop-up comes up and I see it and I can fill it out or click what needs to be clicked so I can go on to the next step where I had something shut off in my Chrome. So having multiple browsers doesn't hurt anything, and it's probably a good thing to have at least a couple. They know how to use them.
When Edge goes over, is it going to look any different than the beta that I've been using? Now, the beta hasn't been updated lately. It was being updated occasionally, not a lot, but I haven't even had an occasional update. So what I'm looking at as we speak, so to speak, is going to be what's going to pop this week, or are there surprises?
I don't think there's surprises. I think it's going to look a lot like, if you go into the settings, it's going to look a lot like Chrome.
Yeah.
And I don't remember, I've used it, but I don't remember how different any of the screens were.
And in Firefox, several of the people in the group use Firefox, and I tried again, and I keep getting a script that runs and hangs it up, and it's buried under a lot of, you know, things that are open, because I'm one of those ones that has a gazillion tabs open. And then it'll say, you know, there's a script running. What is that, and why do I get that? There's other people in the group that use it. They don't have the same problem I do.
If you're having that, it's probably in one of the tabs. There's either a problem with the website or with something is not loaded on your computer. And the best thing to do is you can alt tab. Let's see, how do you change tabs? Is it alt tab? I can't remember, but I would go from tab to see which one that is actually a part of.
Thank you. It's those obvious things that I don't think of.
Mm-hmm.
And the other thing I have here is, with your Evernote. Now, I have the free Evernote. So if I download the Evernote thingy extension, that will do that for me, as long as and I have my Evernote open. Instead of me having to copy and paste the URL into a page in Evernote, that will do it for me automatically.
It's been years since I've used the free version, and I don't remember what you don't have. I don't have Evernote open when I do that.
Okay, so it doesn't. I'm going to try that, because that's absolutely fantastic. Because I'll copy and paste. I do that all the time, and that other thing that you're going to look up for me with all those URLs.
Yes.
That would be absolutely fantastic for me, because when I put a presentation together, I just did one on 5G that I'm going to show tonight. And I probably have at least 5 or 6 websites where I got information from. And that would be fantastic if I could just have them someplace where I could immediately click on them like that.
Yes, it's really nice.
So other than me,
how about anybody else other than Judy?
Yeah,
Any other questions?
Other than me, does anybody else have any questions? I mean, Kathy's been, you know, elbowing David, like, take a note here, take a note there.
I had a question about Grammarly, but I forgot it.
You'll have to repeat. I can't.
It handles grammar, not just spelling.
Does it
Judy,
handle grammar in addition to spelling?
Yeah, Grammarly does. Yeah.
Yes.
Right.
No, it is way cool. I mean, the only thing that is painful is clicking on the down arrow. And especially when you say, no, it's right, and buzz off to the next thing, and then it'll go back and it'll double check to make sure that you were right when you said that misspelled thing, as far as they're concerned, really is a good word.
Like my name.
Yes, like your name. Anybody else have any questions? Note taker, do you have any questions?
So you shop for at a company store?
Chrome. If you're what browser are you going to shop for extensions for?
I don't know.
Okay, well, Hewie went to the Chrome store for Chrome.
Yeah, the Chrome Web Store. And when you click on it with Firefox, it'll say, do you want to look, you want to find some, and it will give a list of all the ones that are available. They aren't all the same for each browser.
Now, do you use the Chrome store for your Chromebook apps too?
Yes.
Okay.
Oh, I use, well, I also use the Google Play for my Chromebook.
Okay, very good. Any other questions? No, but Kathy's taking a picture as we speak, so. Now, is this the same presentation you gave down in Florida?
Almost.
I thought there were some different things. I wanted to make sure I wasn't losing my mind.
Let's see,
Which
I'm going
is
to
easy
stop.
to
I'm going to
happen.
stop the recording.
Please do.